is going. All right, I'm pretty sure we're good now. Everybody, what's going on? Left, right, left nation. Handsome host Mark Archabot is back. United States Marine Corps retired Star Sergeant Tyke. Thanks for all your support. Thanks for everything that you guys are doing to support the channel. I'm going to ask you guys one last time to please continue to view, like, subscribe, all those things. Help out those algorithms, because every single proceed from the podcast gets donated to the Amphibious Tractor Memorial. My partner's over there. So we're trying to break that $2,500 mark. I'd appreciate all your support. Okay, that's it. No more notes. Man, this is going to be a good one tonight. I've known this dude for 30 years. Insane. His story is unique. The reason why he's on is because he's had a very, very unique path. And he's part of that little like mystique club out there that not a lot of people know about, called the Marine Gunner 0306 program. So he's going to tell you all about it. I'm excited to have him. Again, 30 years ago, he was a crewman carrying a radio for Lieutenant Sass in BLT 28, and I was the crew chief of the tractor he was on. And I tell you, even 30 years ago, I thought he was a good dude, and he's going to impart some wisdom and tell everybody about this very rare, only like 85 dudes in the Marine Corps do it, the Marine Gunner program. Additionally, he's also the president of the Marine Gunner Association. My brother, Kevin Gonzalez, welcome.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you having me.
Welcome, man. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. So before we start talking about Marine Gunner stuff and cool friggin' Marine Corps weapons, tactics, all that shit, tell everybody a little bit of where you're from, brother.
Yeah, so born and raised Pensacola, Florida. Dad was Navy, so of course we ended up there. Met my high school sweetheart out of Pensacola, and we've been together ever since. Got 4 beautiful girls, 24, 23, 17, and 20.
Winning. Absolutely winning. We got a really good mutual friend, Dean Oriel. Shout out to you. Sergeant Major retired. Hey, love you, brother. And, a little trio that we had. Appreciate, you continuing to keep the lifelines alive. So thanks, Dean, for everything that you do. Kevin, so before we start talking a little bit about your career, an interesting question I always ask somebody of your seasoned nature is why, in Pensacola, did you decide to become a United States Marine?
Well, it was kind of close to the family. I had 2 of my uncles were former Marines. I have 2 older siblings, so a lot of their friends were Marines. They're reservists out of there's a reserve unit there in Mobile, Alabama, 3rd Force Recon. So they came from the reconnaissance side in the reserves, but nonetheless still Marines. Then my sister married a Marine. So it was kind of close. I knew I didn't, growing up Navy, I knew I didn't want to do Navy. Plus my mom, she loved the uniform.
Yeah, no doubt. That's cool, man. So
yeah.
I like that too. That's good stuff. Many years ago, you and I met. You're a young infantryman. Tell everybody a little bit about, kind of like, when you knew that, like, you really enjoyed infantry and you decided like, hey man, like I'm not going to get out and go to college and go do other shit, but I'm going to stay in the Marine Corps, man. I'm going to donate, 26 years of my life to it.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. So after I left my first duty station, 2-8, I went up to Quantico, up to a school section at Weapons Training Battalion, Quantico, and I was like, well, maybe this is it. We'll give it a shot and see what happens, right? Loved what I was doing over there at school section, working at a small arms weapon instructor course, getting a lot of experience under my belt. Then, of course, just like everybody, I got screened for recruiting duty, right? So got screened. I was found qualified. I couldn't get out of it. And, I was like, well, maybe this is a sign, right? Maybe I'll try to go back, get by named, and go back close to home, and we'll see if that transition can happen, right? I had one of my uncles was a lieutenant with the Escambia County Sheriff's Department there. I was like, well, like everybody, I'm either going to college or I'm going to be a cop. So I did get by named out of RS Montgomery. I got RS RSS Fort Walton Beach, which you came out and visited one time when we had the pulleys out there.
Yeah,
you remember?
Yeah,
and I got the exact RSS I wanted to go to. So that was right before the war kicked off, and of course, I was like, well, this isn't going to happen. I'm not going to get out. So, I kind of worked it with the monitor, found out who was next on the list, talked to the wife, discussed where she wanted to go, and I went to Hawaii and deployed to Afghanistan. And from that point forward, I was like, this is it.
Nice. Hey, could we turn back the clock a little bit? Because during warm-ups, you told me something about Amtraks, right? And as you guys know, I'm an Amtracker. When you were riding in the back of my tractor, how was that experience for you, and how'd that help shape your career?
Yeah, that was horrible. You know, I didn't realize how bad I got motion sickness, and the first time, but when we splashed, and I ended up doing something in my Kevlar right as we hit the beach, and I was like, I can't do this. The cool thing about Amtrak was you get to ride right up on the objective, get out, assault through, get back in, and you're gone, right?
Yeah.
You're not getting dropped off. You're not getting, cold in the boats or walking in from helos. But I couldn't do it. Like, I tried, but I could not do it. So that led me to, as soon as we got back from deployment, I went and took the streamer for snipers, and I went over to snipers.
Yeah, that's awesome, bro. So let me just kind of put it together for everybody. So, you're young infantryman, and then you go on recruiting duty. Now you're back in the fleet. You're going to combat as, at this point, young Marine staff NCO. And you also did the TBS weapons stuff. So when did you start formulating your mindset? You're like, man, this Marine gunner stuff, I like weapons. I don't want to take your story from you, but when did that thing start creeping in your head? You're like, man, this is something that I love.
Well, it's one of those things. It was kind of, growing up, back in the day, you kind of knew what a gunner was, right? Sometimes you seen them, sometimes you didn't. I just knew that, they were this magical thing that walked around the infantry battalion, right? They were like the god of infantry. And I truly didn't know, or did I feel qualified at any point to submit my package until I went to the School of Infantry, and I was an instructor at Infantry Unit Leaders course. At that point, I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. We'll see what happens. Make them say no. You'll never know unless you apply. And it just somehow somebody made a mistake, and I was selected.
Made a mistake. Yeah, right. Hey, I guess something interesting to say, right? Out of all the time that you spent, you spent a long time, obviously, in the Marine Corps, but somebody's out there watching this, right? And they're in the infantry, or they're part of another service, and there's something that's sort of in that field. What attributes do you think are really desired, to make sure that you are, carrying on that legacy and tradition of being a Marine gunner? Like, what attributes should you possess?
They look for somebody that's well-rounded, right? Not a one-trick pony. Somebody that's, they have experience on, it could be on the, the mortar side, the machine gun side. They just didn't stay out there and felt comfortable in one area and stayed in that one area, right? You came up a machine gunner, you got promoted to staff NCO, then you went back to a machine gun section. They want to see you kind of span out and get more versatile. But the biggest thing is, you just have to have the ability to learn. That's it, right? They're going to send you, which they stood up the infantry weapons officer course, and that course was designed to get everybody on the same sheet of music. At least leaving TB or after TBS, you go to infantry weapons officers course. At least leaving that course, they know it. Everybody's at a certain level. As long as you have the ability to learn and you want to learn and you're able to communicate, right? Then that's it. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and coming from somebody who's actually done it and you walk that path, what does a gunner do, right?
Oh wow, yeah.
Like what I know you do a lot, but just kind of give us a synopsis of not just doctrine, but your experience. Like what does a gunner friggin' bring to the table? What do they do for a unit?
We can go down a rabbit hole with this one, but for what everybody knows, for the most part, for a gunner is within the infantry battalion, right? They are directly responsible to the commander for employment of all weapons organic to that unit. But if it involves anything on the ground side, if it goes boom, if they wear it, you're involved, right? It was once told to me that made total sense. You're like the POFO, the point of friction officer. Even though you're not the logistician or you're not the motor T officer, if ammo doesn't show up to the range, you're going to get a call. If the trucks are late to pick somebody up to go out to the range, you're going to get a call, right? So if it involves anything to train, to get Marines ready, not only that, I mean, procurement of gear, trying to get the Marines the right stuff, right? Act on the acquisition side. I mean, you can do whatever you want to be as a gunner, right? I mean, you always have your 10%. You can go sit in the office, never come out of your office. Nobody's going to ever come talk to you. Lieutenants aren't going to come and knock on your door, ask for advice. You can be that guy. Or you can have the open door where lieutenants just want to come in there and not just ask for, mentorship, but they just want to, sit down and chat, that's what you want. Or, junior enlisted. You don't want to be the guy that shows up to the range and it's like, oh, here's Gunner again, right? My best days are going out to a range or showing up anywhere where Marines are and just hanging out with them.
Yeah,
that's it. Just hanging out with them.
I agree. And not only the weapons that are organic to the unit and all things that you said. I remember my time, in infantry battalion supporting them as an Amtracker, that I do remember there was a lot of like tactical advice and guidance as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, on the tactical employment side, when it comes to even a defense, set up a defense in depth or something like that, employing, if you have tracks, setting those tracks up, how do we mash those with the other weapon systems we have that's, either attached or organic to that unit that you're in. Anything that, like I said, anything that goes boom, somehow, some way, you're going to be asked about it, and you better know.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't, you're going to be irrelevant. You're never going to be asked again. So, even though I didn't like riding in them, I still had to employ them after the fact. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's right. Well, I know, Kevin, you made a hell of an impression on some guys when I was Sergeant Major at Kings Bay. I had some lieutenants and captains that checked in from 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, where you're the battalion gunner. And I mentioned your name and they were like, you know him? I was like, yeah, I know Kevin Gonzalez really, really well. At that point, like 15 to 20 years worth of knowing you. And they were like, man, that dude's great. He's wonderful. So good on you for embodying what actually that you're saying.
No, I appreciate it. I learned early on. I think we all go through a phase, right? And a lot of times the default is, let me see how loud I can scream, right, to get stuff done. And I kind of washed that out of my system, once I became a staff NCO. Actually, at the end of my tour as a sergeant, and I realized, like, being a butthole will get you we'll get you something once, and that's it, right? Nobody's going to want to deal with you. Nobody's going to want to conversate with you, regardless who it is. I mean, you're going to have to be able to communicate all the way from the private up to the general. You have to have those talks, right? And everybody in between. So you have to go on with an open mind. You have to have a good personality. That's because your personality is going to follow you, as you know, outside after you retire.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I agree with you, man. It's like, if the only tool you got in your toolkit's a sledgehammer, it's going to be numb. Eventually people get numb to it. So you got to find the right tool for the right people, at the right time. And that's good, man. And what year did you, the Hurlburt Award? I don't want to mispronounce the origination of the gunner community.
Yes.
What's his last name?
Herbert.
Yeah. There's an award. Just let the viewers know. There's an award out there that goes once a year to basically like the gunner of the year is called the Gunner Herbert Award. And Kevin won that award. What year did you win that award, brother?
I believe that was 2011. Yeah.
God damn, man, that's almost 15 years ago. We getting old, dude.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. Sooner or later, you're gonna be the white fox like me, not the silver one, at some point. Dude, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing about your community and and things. And I wanted to ask you, because obviously you've been out of the Marine Corps now for a little bit. You spent 26 years in. You retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 4. Things are good. You got streams of income coming in. But what did you decide to do with those skills that you learned in the Marine Corps, being an infantryman, being a gunner? What are you doing now, and how was your transition out?
I had a great transition. I mean, I went into my last duty station knowing I was going to get out, and it was no secret to anybody, right? I worked all the way up to the last day, but I had a plan going into it. So what I wanted to do was outside of what I did in the Marine Corps. Like, I wanted to step away, have a break for anything that goes boom. I wanted to be an indoor cat for a little bit. And I actually did a skill bridge for a company out of Silicon Valley that was a cloud-based telecommunication company, believe it or not. Cool job. But what I realized is it was difficult for me on the transition period because I was so used to working with such a certain caliber of individuals, right? Like-minded individuals. And that wasn't it, right? Good people, don't get me wrong,
Yep.
but not what I was used to working with for the last 26 years, right? And, they do everything. They were dangling the carrot in front, trying to get me to stay on. It's just, it wasn't for me, So here I am back in the industry, which I said I wasn't going to do, but what it allows me to do is stay around the guys. I'm able to be involved in what I want to be involved in and what I don't want to be involved in. Right.
Yeah.
But I still get to provide a service. At least that's how I feel it to the guys.
Yeah. As far as like professionally, I know I just saw on LinkedIn that you got picked up for a new position. Talk about that real quick before we talk about the association. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first got out, I started doing, actually after I got done with Skill Bridge, I realized I didn't want to do that. I went to a company which is really a military tech company is what it is. Wearable power and data on the body, stuff that I was not versed in at all, right? I had to learn a lot, which was good. I stayed there for 4 years, which was the longest place I stayed in 30 years, right? Like, it was like I was PCSing when I just left. But I got offered another position with a company that is top tier into thermal devices, shortwave, midwave, and long wave infrared devices for DoD. And, that was like really intriguing. So, I took the offer. Nothing bad on my previous employer at all. I left in good spirits. It was something different, right? I was ready for something different. So, like I said, your personality, it follows you, that cloud follows you everywhere. And, neither of those jobs did I apply for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's an important nugget of information. It's like that's like a hidden gem you just dropped off about your reputation. And again, people sought you out for your skills, whether they're tangible or not. But your personality, your attitude, all those intangible things we learned in the Marine Corps. And I know you're doing really, really well with it.
No, it's been great, right? It truly has. In this new position that I jumped in, I'm specifically focused right now on the Marine Corps, which is good, So, I still get to hang around Quantico, unfortunately, but I will be able to get out to the FMF, to the, to divisions and hang out with those guys and get their thoughts, right? I'll to get their input and, find out what they want, not what Kevin Gonzalez wants for them, right? So it's going to be good. Yeah.
Important part to get warfighter feedback from the fleet. And, I look forward to hanging out with you at Quantico too.
Yeah.
Hey man, so you guys recently stood up the Marine Corps Gunner Association, and you are the inaugural president, if I'm not correct. Is that correct? You're the first president?
No, I'm the second. I'm the second president.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I got that right. But what are you guys doing? Tell all the viewers a little bit about your organization, how maybe we can help you, etc.
Yeah. So unofficially, we stood up in 2021. We knew we needed to do something, right? There were some moments that led up to this, which, a good friend of mine, Jesse Shirts, ended up passing away on July 9th, 2021. The early morning, he was struck by a car in Stafford, Virginia, and lost his life. So at that moment, we knew something needed to happen, right? We had individuals. Tom McGuire did a great job. He's real close to family, but we're trying to bring support in, and go to these different, whether they were foundations, associations, these different groups to get support for the family, right? We were thinking, I was like, why don't we have anything? It just wasn't me at that time thinking about it. There was a couple other Marines that were actually thinking about it as well. It just so happened that we were all thinking about it at the same time, right? So I reached out to the gunner that was currently at PP&O, Matt Anderson. I was like, hey man, I got a thought. What do you think about this? And he's like, well, it's funny you mentioned that because these individuals here are thinking about the same thing. So 2021, we had our first little annual dinner in Stafford in like a little conference room of like a Motel 6, just to bring guys in, right? We wanted something so guys that, when they get out, a lot of guys, they fall off the face of the earth, right? We lose contact with them, and that's not good, right? We're a small community, and there's no reason why we can't, support and stay in contact with one another, throughout the years. So we were officially formed in January of 2022. I came in as the treasurer at that point, and slowly we started growing the association. We are a real 501c3. Nobody's getting paid. Nobody's collecting a paycheck. All that money is there to support individuals in a time of need. Whether it's gunners, whether it's military service members. It does not matter what branch they served in. Whether it's first responders, right? We wanted something that's going to bring everybody together, and throughout the year, to lose communication. We've had, over the last couple of years, we've lost 5 gunners, 4 of which were self-inflicted, and that's not good. People have demons in their closet, right? I don't care who you are. If you've been in combat and you've seen some stuff, you've got demons, and all it takes is something to trigger that. And you never know, especially with all the meds that they're putting guys on these days. We really wanted a place that they could reach out and touch and talk, and not me per se, Kevin Gonzalez, is going to sit there and talk off the ledge, but truly like to get them some type of professional help.
Yeah, man, it's tribe, dude. It's absolutely it's tribe. And what you said earlier about kind of like you appreciate the skill bridge, and you appreciate what those people do, but at the end of the day, they're not tribe, man. They just don't have that mutual understanding. And even sometimes I think in the gunner community, a little bit of the mindset can creep in, like nobody really knows about me except for other gunners.
Yeah.
So I think what you guys did is very admirable, and I sense your passion, for the mission, which is huge. And biggest shout out, and rest in peace to Gunner Rob Sundstrom, who saved my sanity and my bacon when he was the RCT 7 regimental gunner, and he was just a godsend for me personally when I fell in on a dysfunctional weapons, and just we had to start at zero. And Rob didn't bitch about it. Rob said, "First Sergeant, whatever we need to do, friggin' let's get your stuff friggin' squared away." And I'll never forget him for that. I'm so grateful. So rest in peace to him.
Yeah, absolutely. He was Rob was my gunner in 3-3.
And yeah, so I'm sure he had a huge impact on you as well.
Yeah.
Such an awesome.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, man. I appreciate you sharing that. What I'll do is in the comment section, I'll drop the link to the Gunner Association. Any of you viewers out there that would like to go over there and check out their foundation, please do so. If you'd like to donate, again, I'll put that link down there so you can help a very worthy, small, impactful community out.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year, for the last couple of years, we're giving out, 1 scholarship for that year. Now we're doing 2 separate scholarships throughout the year. I say two separate scholarships right now. It's going to be up to $10,000 is what we're going to give for scholarships this
Beautiful.
year, and we hope to replicate that and grow it in the out years.
Yeah, and I think another thing, and again, just my perception from what I see from your community, screening your websites and following all you guys, on LinkedIn and on social media. I see a community because I think that there's a little bit of a thing, like once you're a gunner, like you're expected to know everything, but you probably don't, right? Like you said, you're learning along the way. So like you guys bring them like into the family, and you elevate their proficiency, you elevate their spirits, and you can shape their mindset so they can better support the unit. Am I right about that or wrong?
Absolutely. The smartest guy has the biggest Rolodex.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Yeah.
Might not have the highest GT score, but he's got the best network, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you're not expected to know everything. Beyond popular belief, you shouldn't, and you should never think you know everything. Right. And you should be truly honest with that. And phone a friend. I mean, that's what guys are there for.
Yeah.
phone a friend.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. My brother, I know you gotta turn to actually a Gunner Association meeting here in about 45 minutes and go get dialed up for that. But before I cut you out on Liberty, brother, any save rounds, any advice? Because sometimes, like I get some younger guys, that view this, particularly actually a lot of infantrymen from Kings Bay when I was a sergeant major of subscribers here. Uh, any advice, wisdom, for hanging in there?
Yeah, I guess the the Marine Corps is probably, the military is probably the most stable job you'll ever have, right? As you get out, regardless of what even if you're on the GS side or you're doing anything else, that's the most stable job you're going to have. And if you do 4 years or you do 40 years, the only advice I can give you is have a plan when you get out. If your plan is to get up in the morning and not have a plan, build your plan to that, right? As long as you got a plan, you're going to be nervous. Everybody's going to be nervous. Because it's something new. You've known something for a certain amount of time and it's going to change. You're going to be nervous. Got it. But build your plan. Like once you get out, like everybody says, like you're going to get some phone calls, but it's not going to be the phone calls that you're used to, right? You're going to have to take care of yourself and you're going to have to take care of your family.
You're right. You mostly do it on your own with your family and support. The other thing I would just add to that, Kevin, into the audience would be that you got to have a couple of people in your hip pocket that you could tell them and you can vent about anything, and that it's within that circle of trust. Dean Oriel is one of those guys. He absolutely just unloads on the things that he's going through as far as being a president of a contracting company. I unload about, the things that I'm doing as a government civilian now. We bounce things off each other and we keep each other, level and set. And I got like 3 or 4 guys like that are just like him. So believe me that, yes, you are on your own, but you're not. Like you do got to have a good, tight knit, network that you can, you can bounce things off of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're not the first one to get out of the military.
No doubt. There is a blueprint for about everything, Kevin.
Exactly.
Any shout out to any family, friends, anybody like that, man? I'm gonna be the good senior enlisted guy and help you out in this one, Gunner. Like, make sure you go ahead.
Yeah, no. Of course, my family, right? My beautiful wife. Going on almost 28 years married, 34 together. My 4 beautiful daughters, and still to this day, one thing I never did was bring my work home. They still don't know what I did. I mean, they see this right here on my wall because my wife puts it up, but they never knew what I did in the military. At no point did I talk about it. That's just how I was, right? Once I got home, I left everything at the door. I walked in, and they know people call me Gunner, and that was it, right? They still don't know what I do now, in the defense industry, and they don't need to. I don't want to wrap them up in that stuff. So thank them for hanging out with me and putting up for me being extremely selfish for 26 years, and doing the things that I wanted to do, and allowing me to do that. But yeah, I mean, to everybody that served and currently serving, thank you for providing the blanket of freedom that me and my family sleep under every night. So, yeah,
Beautiful.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. My closing remarks would be a couple shout outs to some gunners I'm close with. Sam Mortimer, my DI school classmate. Glad you're doing well out there. Nick Vitale, who was my School of Infantry East gunner, made a huge impact on me. And Gunner French from Marine Corps Security Force Regiment. There's a couple more that I'm sure I'm forgetting, but yourself, Kevin, as well. You're right there in that. I just hold you in high regard, like I do those gentlemen. And thanks very much for the gunner community, but what you continue to do for the Marines and for the units that you support. Phil Blackwell from Marine Corps Warfighting Lab, my cubicle mate. Hoorah, brother.
Nice.
Yeah, man, that's my dog right there. That's a good dude, man.
Yeah. I got one save round, Mark, if you don't mind.
Ahead,
man. I can't say it enough. If there's individuals out there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be you, but if you know somebody that's going up on hard times, reach out, go to the website. He's going to post it up. Send us an email. We're here to help. So please use us.
No doubt. Yeah, dude, we got to do a better job of, but I think it's action steps like the gunner association's doing that are indeed going to be helpful, and they do make a difference. Sometimes you don't see that, as you're putting in the work every week, doing the grind and the work behind it. But believe me, man, it's making a difference for people out there. So thanks for what you guys do.
No, thank you.
All right, everybody. That's it. We're going to shut it down for the night. I hope you enjoyed listening to Kevin Gonzalez, drill down on the gunner community, very elite, community. And I hope that you took something away from this about that prestigious rank, which wears Chief Warrant Officer over here and a bursting bomb over here. It's flat black, and you're not sure if you should salute or not. But hey, do the right thing and just pop up that salute, because they are Chief Warrant Officers. Hey, man, dude, thanks for sharing. And to everybody out there, again, thanks for your support. I love you guys, and have a great night. It should go off here in a second, brother. Okay, so I'm just going to need